Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the second session of our compliance series. Today, we'll be focusing on the regulations that are shaping the Australian BFSI landscape, what they mean for our industry, how we can turn these obligations into opportunities. And we're going to walk through the main agencies, sector specific laws and regulations, who it applies to, and also some business cases. Vikram, do you want to move to the next slide, please? Thank you. I'm Upasna, CEO of Bluebricks, and with me today we have Vikram, our co-founder and CTO, sharing his knowledge on this topic. We are Bluebricks, and we accelerate businesses worldwide with AI-first security and automation solutions. Before we begin, just a quick housekeeping note. Today's session will run for around 25 is likely to run beyond 20, 25 minutes, followed by 5 minutes of Q&A. Please stay engaged and feel free to drop your questions in the chat. If you face any technical issues, just refresh or restart your browser. This session is being recorded, so you'll have access to the recording as well later. So, getting in, we all know that no group, no community, and no business can truly progress if everyone played by their own rules, like a city with no traffic lights. At first, it feels free, but very quickly accidents pile up and no one gets anywhere. That's exactly why laws and compliance matter in BFSI. The regulations are our shade boundaries and give us trust, stability, and safety we need to innovate and move forward as an industry. And in the next slide, we'll briefly look at some of the cases here in Australia where non-compliance led to massive penalties and reputational damage. These are not distant stories. They've happened right here in our own market, and they carry important lessons for all of us.
Yeah. Okay. I think as Sana already built the context, so this slide, essentially brings, when the companies kind of did not put the right, checks and bounds or solutions in place. So I strongly believe that it's always, a triangle between, the PPP, which is the products, the people, as well as, the processes that you define. And, whether it's compliance, whether it's running business as usual, you always need to do that. So if you look at this particular slide, Commonwealth Bank did not follow the AML compliance properly. Same goes for Westpac. Then even Medibank and Optus, which are giant names, they actually had they did not have the right I would say processes in place or the products in action, which actually protected the private data. So there was a data breach, but then why it happened, how it happened, right? So we always have to look at what compliance is asking for us and how we should be able to put the right people, processes, and products in place. Now, I think this again, Sana, we always talk about that, regulation or regulators try to bring the, the price of trust, right? They bring the trust in it, correct? Which is between the business to the community or to the end users. But that is what we need to pay, which regulators bring on the table, correct? And if we don't have that, there's a total collapse of, I would say the confidence that we can have. If my bank is not having right systems, I'm not going to have confidence to do banking with them, right? Same goes for any other entity that I'm interacting with. Property management company, if I feel they are not doing things rightly, or if they don't have the right processes, or if they are saying, give me your card information or your eKYC information, or identity information over an email, then the confidence gets lost, right? So we always have to look at why compliance is asking us to do this. Now, I think a couple of slides will be a bit wordy, but they are very, very important. And first, we'll look at what are the agencies, in our Australia that are kind of mandating, and what are the acts that are going to come and impact us. So I think APAR, which is obviously the central, Australian authority, and then we obviously have the Privacy Act, which is since 1988. But now later on, we have what they call it as notifiable data breach. So in case you have a breach, then there's a process and there's a steps that is, this act demands, or this organization is asking for any company to do it. So if you're anybody who's making more than 3 million in revenue, you need to follow this. Then obviously Austrade, which looks at the customer onboarding or EKYC, as well as customer due diligence, CDD and so on, which could be for SMEs as well as for users. Then we have ACCC, which actually brought in what we call it as consumer data rights. So if one insurance company is sharing data with another, then do you have the user's consent? That's a very important part. So can you share my data without my consent? It's a very simple question to ask, but that's what this brings there. That if the data is shared between one, organization to another, even though they are partner or siblings or, sister companies or have a business association affiliation, then is the user consent given? Correct. So these are the things which, kind of come and play in the role of today's world where everything is kind of connected. And then there's e-payment code from ASIC, and also e-sign code under the Corporate Act, which have come in. So we'll go obviously much deeper into it, but I'm just sharing with you that there are these set of bodies which are government agencies, regulators who are coming in and doing the right part, which is the price of trust that we need to pay. Now, obviously, most of us, or all of us in Australia, we have credit card, debit cards, we do, TouchWave, stuff like that, NFC payments. And that is where two of these compliance, which are not, I would say, national, but they are external. One is PCI DSS, and the second one is GDPR. So we'll take a deeper dive into this also, but PCI DSS is whenever we are doing any card transaction. So in that scenario, what happens is that if there's a card fraud that gets executed, and if it's let's say one of the banks in Australia, then who is responsible? Is it merchant's responsibility, or is the bank's responsibility, or the customer was rogue? So to identify and do that, there's a standardized way of doing it, which is what PCI DSS has done. And if you follow those standards, you don't get penalized. But if you don't follow, obviously, the I would say obligation comes onto you. And GDPR, again, we'll take it ahead, but this is essentially for anybody who's a EU citizen, and if it's accessing those services here in Australia, then GDPR does apply. So we'll look into those things also. But this in essence are the agencies that are going to mandate what we can do or what cannot do, and what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. So they are not just enforcing rules, but they are also giving the standards so that we can protect our citizens, sustain our markets as a business, and also evolve a society where the trust is built in the finance, because that's the backbone of whatever we do today, and the technology that is running that. Yeah. So let's go a little bit deeper now. Now, what we have done is that we have kind of taken a bird's eye view that what is the law and what is the core ask of that particular law. Obviously, it's a multi-page document. One can go through it. So if anybody wants it, before I'm sharing that if anybody wants to get the full PDFs instead of surfing online and googling it out, if you send us an email, we can pass you all the public documents which we have compiled in one repository, so that you can have a deeper dive yourself. Yeah. Then whom it applies to. That's also important. And then what kind of penalty, like some examples, if you don't follow that. And then as an entity, if I'm a lender, if I'm a bank, if I'm an insurance company, then what exactly is my commitment? So commitment meaning that what kind of solution I should be able to bringing in, whether continuous monitoring, multi-factor, board being held accountable, strong authentication, how do you handle dispute, things like that, right? So this is something which we need to do. So now if you look at it, this is the most prominent one. So the first three which you would see is something that I would say cuts across the whole BFSI. Yeah. So the first one is APRA, which is where the information security part we talk about. I will not go into details because this will get, very, I would say, a 3-hour webinar. But any disclosure that we should be doing, and then also e-payment codes that is coming in. And then if you look at it, to whom it is applying. So if you are a credit company or a lender, then you need to look at what applies to me. And then what are the kind of penalties that can come over here, right? So there's another list following to this is more AML and CFT, which is so this is essentially came after, I would say, when we had 9/11, and then obviously everything became bigger. So we wanted to know that anti-money laundering, became a big problem because terrorist groups are funded. So there's a whole anti-money laundering, law, and then the whole consortiums globally that have come in. So that is where, who are you? Are you a good person? Are you not a blacklisted person, or belonging to a terrorist group or something like that? Or are you a PIP, politically exposed, person or a party? So these things came into picture is so that you can actually do banking in a very easy way, especially international as well as nationally, where there is no friction or wrongdoing that can happen, right? So over there, customer onboarding became very important, doing customer due diligence became very important, and so on and so forth. So this applies to lenders, banks, everybody, and so on. So this is what a bank needs to do. So I'll just take a few more examples. Now, banking industry does love e-signing. So whatever we have done is, whenever we have taken any loan or mortgage, took a credit card, or to open a new bank account, we actually did a e-signing. Now, which could be with a stylus, and now, with the world, we could do it on the mobile. So reliable e-signing, identity proofing, stuff like that. And then consumer data right, the previous example that we took, where API security, consent capturing, all these become very, very important. Consent capturing is very important because it directly proportionates to what we call it as non-repudiation. That means you cannot deny I did not do it. If an email comes to you and says click here and say yes, now that might not hold very good when it comes to non-repudiation, right? Because let's say your email got hacked. So how do you actually enforce non-repudiation is where e-signing and many other elements come and play a very important role. Yeah. So when we think of business, we always think of what are the functionality that we can bring in. So security always is an afterthought, right? But what we are trying to emphasize over here as Bluebricks is that how can we bring security not as an afterthought, but a thought in between or during, when we are building stuff or buying, products or selecting vendors. Yeah. Now, this slide goes to that next part, which is if you are, having, I would say, GDPR or PCI DSS coming into play. And then we'll take the third one out because it's extremely important. So the first GDPR, it's lawful, basis of processing consent of the people that are there. So any EU BFSI entity, you could be, a lender or insurer or anybody. If you're offering services to an EU personnel and monitoring EU behavior, then it applies to you. So do not think that you are escaping GDPR. If your customers are coming, or customers are from EU, then you have to consider this into play. Then penalties are quite heavy for that. So please take this seriously. Then I think we will not jump into PCI DSS in a deeper way, but PCI DSS is all about, how I can secure the card details, CVV number, right? And then also if there is monitoring of the transactions that needs to be done. So
I think PCI, sorry, I think PCI DSS should be a whole separate webinar in itself.
Yes, I think we might do that. That's coming on a popular demand. We have done a couple of projects. I think we'll also share, what I would real experience has been, while implementing or helping, companies achieve PCI DSS compliance. Yeah. So from data security to obviously, masking of information to bringing multi-factor fraud engine, there's so much that PCI DSS itself demands, which we have to put in, right? Not as islands, but more as a single solution. And Sana, the third one, which I've highlighted over here in orange, is basically to do with, accessibility. So if somebody is, so basically, normally when we're designing websites, we are not really taking care of, of try to take care of 99% people, but there's still 1% people, who have, I would say, possibly vision issues or hearing problems. They are special in that way. So your website should be able to cater that, and especially when it comes to banking or insurance, definitely this should be a requirement. Why? Because banking, insurance, or BFSI itself has become a utility now. It's not something
Absolutely.
it's good to have. It's like you need to have, right? So
And digital inclusion is very important.
yes, and if you really look at it, so one of the things in Australia is that it's not being enforced yet as such. But if you look at US, if you look at UK and Canada, they have taken the lead, and they are definitely, possibly penalizing, and also, asking them to do that. Where making sure that everybody's covered, nobody's left behind. And I think that that's a very right philosophy, that nobody should be left out for the basic utility services that we should have. So now, going a little bit ahead and faster now, so what we looked was more like a baseline that applies to you. When you, let's say, you're becoming a neobank, or if you're starting a like a joint SMSF, like a super fund. But then what happens is that because of your special work within BFSI, within banking sector, there are certain specific laws that get applied to you. So over here, we will try to skim it through very quickly. So CIS Act, which is to do with superannuation, comes in. Even the administration part, which is from the ATO. So the lower two ones are to do with SMSF. And also lending. So the above two ones are more to do with lending. Like you cannot lend somebody more than 48% of what serviceability they can do. So let's say somebody goes and says, okay, I'm going to buy a car, I'm going to buy a TV, I'm going to buy new bikes, I'm going to take a personal loan, I'm going to do buy now pay later. Right now, that means you're stretching so much. That means the person cannot service the loans that they have taken. Now that means who is responsible? It's the business who has given the loan out, the lender who has given the loan out responsible, right? Why did you lend the person if they did not have the capacity to pay it back? Correct. So that is where it comes in. I'm trying to keep it very, I would say bird's eye right now. So this is where responsible lending kicks in. So there's a whole standard around it. So how you're doing the verification, how you're doing the credit scoring, based on the risk that gets involved, and then how much you can lend out. So again, you need an engine which will do credit decisioning, credit scoring, possibly using AI, right? That can help out. So now going further, there are obviously health insurance, right? And then crypto. So these are some more, I would say, laws and acts that actually apply to that specific sector within BFSI. Again, when we talk about crypto, it can, it's a Pandora box itself. But in essence, eKYC is very important. The value of asset is very important. Monetary aspect is very important. So those things are covered very well over here. And then health, definitely, because if we are looking at the data, which is coming, then what exactly I need to put in. So again, going back to the last column, what the entity should be doing for it, right? Again, I'm keeping on saying again and again because I cannot explain everything now, but later on when you get the slides, or you ask for it, you can go in a much deeper, depth for what is being, shown over here. A very different aspect. I'm from Singapore or from US or from Korea, and I want to come here, and set up a bank or set up a leasing entity, right? Now, that means that obviously there's your HQ, you already have your processes in place, you're following certain, standards as per that, I would say your head office or your HQ, right? But again, because you're going to be in Australia, you need to follow certain things that are basically going to suit the land over here or the law of the land. And these are few of the things, we'll not go into details, but it's the similar thing. Like if there's a disclosure, the lending aspect that we talked about, or if you're outsourcing to third party, or if you're sharing the information, about, the customers and their, details to another third party, right? Possibly up the chain, then you need to make sure that you're complying the law. So again, many times you are, you have an investor. An investor is a company, and you have a dotted line over there, and you are leveraging on the hardware or the cloud services that they're providing you. Now that possibly can create a bit of, a gray area where you might be stepping into, non-compliance, right? So you need to make sure that if you're sharing resources, with your parent company or with the sister company, you need to comply with the Australian laws. Yeah, I cannot emphasize more, but it's always good to, do a, like a audit check around it. Yeah. So this again, I think this wording itself, or the statement itself, very clearly states it. The word which I want to highlight over here is also vendor. Now, many times, you might be reselling a product, or you might be selling it to a local company or a local bank or a local lender, but we need to look at it as an industry that, it should not be one dimensional, right? Just the compliance part. We need to consider security, privacy, resilience, accessibility, and trust, all together, because the customer in society demands that. Yeah. So it's not just the customer who has to be kind of, be aware and responsible about it, but it's the people like us, and the vendors should also take that ownership, take that responsibility, and bring it forward. Yeah. So going a little bit further now comes the better part. I love this, next things, because we have seen what acts have been there, what agencies have been there, what a foreign entity should do, and what the foreign standards that apply to us. But now we are going and jumping into a little bit more. But before that, I want to tell you what our product does, or our platform does, and why we are doing this, right? So as Bluebricks, we 9-year-old, we have built a lot of tech, and that is essentially being put into these 9, little, I would say, pods or modules. And if you really look at it from a BFSI point of view, eKYC, customer onboarding, credit scoring and decisioning, which we talked about earlier, bringing strong authentication into play, data security because of PCI DSS or Privacy Act, fraud and risk engine, again, used in crypto, used in insurance, used in lending, employee security, because that's a big chunk of it. Like, if I'm an organization and I need to make sure they have the right controls in place, I need to have employee security, which is core. And we have done a beautiful webinar some time back. Again, please do listen to that. Then looking at e-signing, you'll have contracts to sign within the company with your third parties. You'll have customers who are getting the on-the-fly loan from you. You want to make sure you have auditable, or audit-friendly, non-tampering, non-repudiation being enforced. Then document processing, generating documents, consuming documents, extracting data, and stuff like that. So over the last 9 years, we have built all this tech, which actually is helping BFSI sector to comply with Australian standards, or across the globe. So very, very quickly, one big engine is to look at all the transactions, multi-factor, single sign-on, fraud, risk, all that kind of stuff, and bring it in with, I would say, all the necessary standards that are there. Then the second aspect is e-signing. If you're looking on mobile, if you're looking on initiating through WhatsApp, if you're looking at using biometrics, or FIDO, so it's got beautiful things that actually fit in very well in loan journey that we want to create, or onboarding of a SME into the play. So again, amazing value that kind of gets cut across. And then zero code, AI agent, and flows. Now, obviously, the whole world is about AI now, and we do use a lot of AI internally in all the layers, that 9 layers that we have talked about. But what you see over here is a platform that can actually talk to your social media channel, your email, your calendars. So your sales team, marketing team, they can actually automate your help team, help desk team, your support staff, they can actually engage with the customers very well. And obviously there's a whole layer of bot that can actually help you out. It can plug into any Gen AI and do wonderful stuff. So in less than 1 minute, I've tried to share with you what we have done. This is something which will take some time, but the idea of this slide is to share that looking at what is our maturity level from from support to integration to the tech stack, and this is the rating that that we have got. Now going towards the business use cases. say you are a neobank, or you are a lender, or you are a SMSF, right? Because they all are coming under the umbrella of BFSI, which are under regulation. So you would say that, hey, what can be my priority? So we looked at the laws and the acts, then we looked at who it needs to apply to. Now you're looking at, if I am a lender, if I am a neobank, then what should I be doing? So what we have suggested and done is that we have given you a 3 priority list over here, where you could say that, okay, if I am setting up a neobank, what should I do first? Bring in e-signing, bring in multi-factor, bring in strong authentication, because Privacy Act will also come in. Then AML should come in as a second priority. Then towards the end, look at open banking if you're sharing data or getting access from the data. Or if you're saying, hey, I'm also going to roll out cards, then that means you're going to come under PCI DSS, right? So based on that, you need to look at multi-factor, identity access management, reverse proxy, data security, and so on and so forth. So the idea of this is that one size doesn't fit all, but at the same time, the tools, the processes are very well mapped to what the regulators are asking you to do. So now with this particular table, you can actually identify where you fit in, what special sector acts or laws you need to apply, what the base pillar laws that you need to follow, and then take it through. So again, if you're a credit card issuer, you'll be focusing more on PCI DSS as a first priority. If you're looking as a crypto trader, then something will come in later. So that's the generic idea of these 2 slides, to help out, to see what needs to come in. So at the end, regardless what you need, because you need identity, data, compliance, all these things coming together, you need a single unified platform that does not create, islands or silos, but that kind of brings everything as one, so that it can strengthen your security, you lower your cost, because obviously it's single, and then bring a greater compliance value to you, right? And we have done it with multiple banks across the region. So I would say this is the value that we also bring, as a company. And this is us, I would say. So multiple Australian mandates, 100% on Aussie. Single principle, meaning we are not trying to put solutions from multiple sources and saying, okay, here is a package, but I have to subscribe to 10 licensing from other different 10 companies. No, everything is owned by one single source, single platform, single principle, which is Bluebricks. So faster compliance, lower cost, least noise, and no drama. So with that, Sana, anything, questions, or any thoughts that you have? Otherwise, it looks like I'm just the teacher here.
No, Vikram, thank you so much. I'm sure all of those slides would be adding a lot of value to everybody who's here, and definitely would prompt us to look further and dive deeper into the compliance requirements that we have. So there is a question here that says, which Australian compliance laws carry the biggest financial and reputational risk for BFSI companies right now? And
Yeah.
how do you prioritize them without overspending? Cost is always a factor in.
Yeah. No, I would say the first one, whenever you do that, is you have to look at, firstly, Privacy Act. Second, I think you have to look at APRA, which is the security aspect, the information security, and the third is AML, and CTF. If you look at these 3, I'm assuming that you're not rolling out your cards and all that, but if you're any entity, whether you're a lender or a superannuation, if you look at these 3, Privacy Act, APRA, and then obviously AML. Then if you look at these 3 and sort it down from day one, you are in a good control. So that would be my top list for these 3. Obviously, you can bring in many more, like e-signing. You can bring in many more things, but these are the 3 that would be required. And second part is very right, because if you buy these 3 as 3 different solutions from 3 different vendors, your cost will go into a couple of millions. And obviously it's three times the headache, three times the SLA, three times the cost for the support that you're paying, everything, right? But if you look at
Then,
something like us, what we are offering is where we have brought all these nine things as one, which
mm,
clearly give a much, value to the customer, right? Um, uh,
absolutely.
yes, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. You're right. And also the gaps that it creates in your process just by bringing in multiple vendors.
True, true, true. Many of the projects they get delayed and they struggle because there is multi-party integrations that are required, and that itself slows down your project by by two or three times because there's too much communication. There is a quality assurance. There are security gaps. You have to do the pen test again. It's disjointed, so even the data that is being looked upon is different. When you go into the operational aspect, it's hard because you have three different dashboards where you're looking at the same information for a
Correct,
customer, but you don't have a 360-degree view. You have to go at one dashboard and the dashboard and the dashboard, right? Which becomes a
correct,
bit of a problem, correct? And if you
correct,
try to
correct,
solve it technically and say, okay, let me do API integration and all that, then you need to have those three vendors talk to each other, get those APIs sorted
correct,
out, build a new dashboard. Now, who's going to do that? Are you going to again spend more money, or you going to build it yourself? Then who's going to maintain it? Right? And what if the API changes? So, or what if you change the vendor after 3 years? So there's so much that happens just because of simple change. It's just that it becomes a hindrance to the growth of business, right?
mm,
Of clients. So that is what our experience has been. My experience has been for last 25 years. So compliance with consolidation is the way for any organization, especially BFSI, because it's highly regulated, very fragmented. Over time, it has grown. There are 40, 50, 60, 100 apps that are running, possibly replicas, possibly can be consolidated into 20 apps or 30 apps, right? So this is all needed. But what we are saying is if you look at security, authentication, data, and all that, then Exim Protect actually helps you in a big way to solve multiple channels, multiple applications coming into a single source. And I haven't seen a product which does all that. It's not just because we have built it, but I haven't seen a product which looks at identity, compliance, data all as one, as a whole. Yeah. So Sana, I think before we end, just wanted to share, this slide. So it's always good to have a takeaway, right? In a webinar. So when I go back, what do I do? First and foremost, send us an email, uh, get all the PDFs, get this copy, get on a call with us. But then this is something which you can do very, very quickly. Again, I'm not going to go through it again. One of the things which I want to highlight is this one: audit vendors and outsourcing register. Who are your vendors? What access do they have? Are you going to audit them? Are they actually looking at, or do they have ISO 27000 or something like that in place already, right? So I would say the second last item is one of my top list right now, apart from other things, because when it goes to a third party vendor, it's out of my control how they handle data, how they look at things, right? So obviously there's a lot of homework that needs to be done internally, but obviously look at what you're letting the other person do ahead and take it. So again, you can use us, our resources, our expertise, and also these are the two things that we are offering to you. So just send us an email, scan the QR code, and get the access to these two things. The idea over here is to help you get started. So you can do a tabletop exercise internally, or you can do it with us, and we can work with you. We have worked with multiple, BFSI banks. One customer of ours is almost 12 million user base, so we know how scalable the system needs to be. So we can be a growth partner, and we feel that Australia is kind of transforming themselves to become more digital, and I think the journey is going to be more beautiful. So we would like to be part of that journey together, yeah, with our expertise and your imagination. So I think that's the last slide. Sana, if any more questions, I think we have overshot a little bit, way over time, almost 34 minutes.
yeah, yeah. But I knew we would overshoot this one because we just had so much to share, and I think that's all right because it's more important to put all this information out and share it rather than, be very rigid on the 20-25 minutes. So sorry, it's gone a bit longer, but I hope that it has added value. There is one more question
Yeah.
which says, how can one platform or partner simplify overlapping mandates like CPS 234, AML, CTF, and PCI DSS so compliance becomes faster and more cost effective? I think we've kind of
Yeah, I think we have covered
yeah,
that,
covered
yeah,
that.
in a earlier way. So, but
Yeah,
if anybody has any more questions, they can shoot out to us. One more
yeah,
thing is that whatever you're looking at needs to become quantum safe. So when we are talking with the regulators and a lot of our current customer base, there are no direct guidelines or standards. I won't say standards. There are no guidelines by the regulators that are enforcing quantum safety, but that is something that one should look at going forward because that will be coming very, very soon. Yeah, might be 6 months, might be 3 months, but that's something we should look upon when you're looking at
yeah.
solutions, when you're looking at vendors, or putting the solutions in place. And we have done that. So we have done that exercise. NIST has released standards which are quantum safe. So we have already got them into XCM Protect. Whatever we are doing from data protection point of view, identity protection point of view, biometrics data, made secure. So all that places we are becoming, or we are quantum safe. Yeah. So that's in beta, but I think by next month we'll have it out. Yeah. Cheers.
Super. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vikram, for sharing all of that information. And thank you, everybody, for joining in. Please feel free to reach out or to Vikram or me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to offer the 45-minute gap analysis and just sit and have a chat with you. So looking forward to connecting. And I hope this webinar has been helpful for you. Thank you, Vikram. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.